Hey, good evening. This is Matt Mosley, your old buddy Sasquatch on Sasquatch Says Live. Uh, you know, we started this thing a couple of weeks ago, and the goal is to continue to talk about mental health and to really rip the Band-Aid off around, you know, talking and removing this stigma, Don, from mental health. But tonight I've got my first guest. I'm really excited about it. I met this guy through some Twitter spaces. I don't know if you guys are on Twitter much, but met him through my guy Philly Kaysen, BMBB, and Hoops, Combino Memory. Two great guys from the Vancouver, Washington, Portland, Oregon area. Met Coach Don through those guys, and have just absolutely fell in love with this dude. He's genuine. He's an honest guy. He's got a freaking awesome story, and I wanted him to be the first guest on Sasquatch Says Live. Uh, Coach Don, man, I appreciate you taking time to spend with me tonight. What's going on?
I appreciate you having me, man. That's some nice words. Yeah, I mean, I love Philly cheese, BMBB, of course, and Beano too, man. Those are my guys. Good dudes.
So
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm
tell
happy to
me,
be here.
tell me about Don Hogue, man. I know you've got a hell of a story. Your background, like I was reading through the little bio you sent me. We're going to dive a little deeper into that in a minute, but tell me a little bit
Sure.
about Don. Who's Don Hogue?
Um, I don't know who I am. I guess that's better answered by others. But I can tell you where I'm from and what I've done, I suppose, and what's kind of molded me. I was born in Louisiana. My family, both sides of my family, are from Louisiana. I grew up in South Texas. My folks moved to South Texas when I was a baby. I grew up in Texas, graduated high school when I was 16. I joined the Army 2 weeks after my 17th birthday. I was in the Army for 5 years, 6 years, 5 years active, 1 year reserve. Two tours, Iraq, came home, and I don't know, didn't really know what I was going to do, just that I was done with that, you know. So I worked trades for a little while. I played poker for a living for a little while. And then I had this GI Bill that I had always kind of held on to as a parachute. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I didn't want to waste it. I didn't have any trouble making money really, so I didn't, you know, whatever. I was like, I'll use it one day if I need it, or I can give it to my kids or my wife or whatever. Um, and then I just got to a point where I just didn't want to do that anymore. You know what I mean? Working in the trades and like hanging out in poker rooms all the time was, you're not always around the most savory of
Reputable
characters.
individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's cool. I still play poker from time to time. Like I'm not hating on that or whatever. It's just not how I wanted to spend all of my time anymore. And I loved basketball. I'd always loved basketball. I've been told many times in my life I should get into coaching. And so, like, well, I got this GI Bill. So there was a point at which I was kind of frustrated with the work and didn't really want to do it anymore anyway. And I had a disagreement with the boss about how much I was worth, and I was like, all right, well, today's the day then. Um, and they actually called me back the next day and they were like, you shouldn't have talked with the owner like that. He was mad at you. But we're gonna give you what you asked for. And I was like, it's too late, man. I already made the decision last night. We're done.
Hmm.
Have a good one. Um, so I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I had never lived there before. That's not true. That's not true. I spent some time there when I worked in the trade. That's why I knew I liked the area. And I wanted to get away from everywhere I was at, you know. Just a change of scenery, whatever. Anyway, so I actually went on the internet and looked at all the junior colleges in the Phoenix area and figured out who I thought, based on bio and experience and all those things, was the best coaching staff to work for. And that's where I went to school, and that happened to be Mesa Community College. I got lucky to be accepted in fairly quickly by some great coaches. Mike Grothaus at Basha High School in the Phoenix area, amazing guy, amazing coach. Can't say enough about him. Owe him a lot. My entry to coaching, really. Coach Ballard, our head coach. I mean, amazing. He'll be a Hall of Famer in Arizona for sure. He may be already. Nobody told me. I don't know. He's got 700 or 800 wins in his career. Just, again, amazingly knowledgeable, amazing person, all of those things. So I was really lucky to be able to work with and learn from those guys. And that's kind of how I got into coaching. And I did that I worked at Mesa for 4 years. I ended up moving back home after those 4 years, and I ran an AAU program for 3 or 4 years, I guess. And then my kids were graduating, so I didn't know if I wanted to start over or not. And I happened to get a call from a buddy that I worked with at Mesa. He had got the head coaching job at Grayson University and asked me to come help him. So I ended up moving to Iowa. Did that for 2 years, and I've been running a golf course since then, and I love it. Now I just, I have friends that call me and ask my opinion on things, but I don't do it full time anymore. I consult here and there and help out where I can or when needed, but it's not my day to day anymore.
Got you, man. You and I've talked before, and I've read your writing, and I think the last time you and I talked, at length, just the two of us, I told you, I was like, dude, your story is powerful. Growing up in different environments. I mean, I'm a Southern kid. I grew up in Eastern Arkansas, lived in Alabama a good chunk of my life. You can see all the Razorback gear hanging on the wall.
I sure can.
Yeah, you can tell it bleeds out of my veins. But, going from Louisiana to South Texas, I mean, that's a big jump, right?
It's different.
Share with us, how these early life experiences, how did that impact your outlook? And even now, being grown, looking back, how do you think that impacted your mental health journey?
Oh, I'm not sure. I guess I never really considered that mental health wise. I know it definitely shaped my outlook on things and how I saw the world, and especially things like right and wrong.
Yeah,
I would say is a big one. I learned pretty early, um, because the environments are different. I mean, people, they're both the South, all
yeah,
right. But I mean, I grew up in, the mid '80s, early '90s, late '90s. And South Texas is very diverse. I mean, I'm from San Antonio. I grew up mostly in San Antonio. It's an Air Force city. Most people that have lived in San Antonio for a long time ended up there because of the military. So
that's right.
it's all walks of life. Um, and then outside of that, it's a highly populated Hispanic area.
Hmm.
So I mean, I grew up in diverse schools.
Yeah,
Uh, there was a little bit of people that maybe weren't as fortunate, and also people that were fortunate, and
hmm,
people from all races and creeds, in
yeah,
the school. And that's kind of how I grew up. And so that's just what I was used to. I never thought anything of it. But then when I would go to Louisiana, I don't want to call nobody out, but it wasn't necessarily that way. Like there were literally railroad tracks that, these people
yeah.
are over
You
here.
stayed on your
Yeah.
side. Yeah, totally understand.
And in the way people talk about each other and things like this, I knew pretty early I didn't like any of that shit. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, right on.
Um, so I would say I would like with that stuff. I guess that was definitely something that shaped me as a youngster for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Um, and I don't know if that answered the question or not. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
absolutely. I mean, I think, the viewpoint, some folks that see this are probably going to come from different backgrounds, right? We're all from different backgrounds. You and I happen to be from South. We got
Right.
friends that live all over the country, come from different environments. We got guys that grew up urban. We got guys like me, grew up way out in the country. So I
Hmm.
think it's valuable, especially when it's two men talking about and the subjects we're going to get into tonight. It's valuable for the people that watch and the people that listen to hear different perspectives. And while we both grew up in the South, we grew up in a different kind of South.
Hmm.
I grew up, was a rural farm kid from Eastern Arkansas until I was 13, then moved to the suburbs of Birmingham, Alabama. Grew up in a community in Arkansas that was 75% African American, moved to Alabama. I went to school with like three black kids. So different upbringing, like complete culture shock for me because of what I was used to. So it was different. So I think it's important because it shapes the outlook, and when we're talking about mental health, I think it also shapes our perspective on when we see somebody and what they're going through. And, working with athletes, you work with basketball players, I work with a lot of football players. It's tough when you're a white guy from the suburbs to get an African American kid from the city because we ain't the same. And you got to find that common ground. So I think you've got a little bit of advantage on me because you were in a lot more diverse area growing up. I mean, I know that area of San Antonio, man, it's a mixing pot. There's people from all over the world. Not to mention the Hispanic community, and that's in that part of Texas is very, very strong. So, when I was reading your bio, you told me you graduated high school at 16, right? Which is unusually young to graduate high school at 16.
Yeah.
And joined the Army not too long after that. How did that early dive into adulthood? Like at 17, man, that's tough. Like I've got a 17-year-old.
Probably too young.
I can't imagine putting my 17-year-old putting an M2 in his hands and a belt of grenades and telling him, "Hey, go fight." Like I can't. Yeah, I can't make that jive. So what was that like for you, man, as a young kid, like going from 16-year-old high school kid to 17-year-old private in the Army?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what happened. So it kind of came about mostly because, I mean, I just never liked school. And not that I love learning. And I still do to this day. I mean, I'll still go to classes every now and then if I know somebody that's like I still know a lot of the professors at the university and whatnot, and if anyway, whatever. It was always really like easy for me, I guess, and went way too slow. And so I spent a lot of my time bored. And around the 8th or 9th grade, I figured out that I didn't need to get straight A's anymore. It really didn't matter because everybody that didn't do that was moving right along with me. And I had to sit through class and wait for them to figure everything out. Like that's how I felt as a teenager. And so summer before my junior year of high school, my dad got a new job and I actually moved to Indiana. I actually graduated high school in Indiana, but I only went to school there for like 9 months. The way credits transferred over, I only needed half of a senior year instead of a full senior year. So what I did instead of having half of a senior year in a place I didn't want to be was I took college classes at night, my junior year, and skipped my senior year altogether.
Wow.
That's how that worked out. And I mean, I got a pretty good score on my SATs. So, I mean, I had a lot of letters and offers and stuff for academic scholarships at all kinds of universities all over the country. But I hated school. You know what I mean? Like the reason I graduated high school early was I didn't want to do that anymore. And I didn't know what I wanted to do really. But I knew I could buy myself some time and figure it out and get a GI Bill. Like, my parents they're not poor, but they couldn't afford to send me and cover me for 5 years or 4 years or whatever while I'm at school. And so I would have had to figure that out. That would have been a struggle. I'm sure I would have ended up needing some kind of student loans or whatever. And I wasn't interested in doing any of that. And I was like, well, I can, I always thought it would be cool to be, some kind of covert character in the government or something like,
be like a pipe hitting operator working overseas. Yeah. I got
so.
I mean, we've all seen that Green Beret and Navy SEAL commercials growing up. I mean, those things were aggressive.
Yeah. That stuff appealed to me. James Bond, all these things.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I can go try my hand at that stuff and see if I like it or not. And if I don't, they pay for my college in 4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So that's kind of what I did. And then, I did really well. I mean, I got a perfect score on the ASVAB, so I could basically do whatever I wanted in the military. And so I went in as an analyst. And while just before I finished analyst school, my clearance was taking a long time, right? For whatever reason, because I'd lived all over the place, really. I mean, the investigation takes a little longer.
Yeah.
Anyway, 9/11 happened.
Yep.
So, I kind of it's like, well, we can't really have you sitting around here waiting anymore. I was already done with school. My I was 98 Charlie, signals, electronic warfare signals intelligence analyst qualified. Like I'd done basic, I'd done the school, everything. I was MOS qualified, but I didn't have my top secret clearance yet, so I couldn't go work in a skiff. So whatever, I had multiple conversations with these people and got tired of waiting, and they needed scouts, and I thought scouting was cool. I was in pretty good shape. I liked, doing the stuff on my feet and hiding in trees and riding dirt bikes and all that kind of stuff sounded cool. So that's what I went and did. And so I ended up at Fort Hood, and I was in first cav for 4 years, I guess. After I went to the back half of Scout OSUD at Fort Knox. And that's where I served out the rest of my time in the military. I went to 212 cav and 18 cav, 18 cav. So I went to Iraq with.
First off, I want to tell you thank you for your service. You and I've talked many times about this. Veterans, I think, a lot of times get a raw deal, especially when it comes to mental health care. And I've got friends that served in Iraq. You've got brothers that served in Iraq, Afghanistan. I think it's safe to say that none of you guys are the same. It's different experiences, but everybody left some. You were there in 04 and 05. That was a rough time over in that part of the country. Incredibly challenging. Can you pinpoint, or do you feel comfortable discussing any mental health struggles you might have faced during or after your deployments? And then
Sure.
Like coping mechanisms maybe that you picked up? Because I'm sure there's going to be some vets, some brothers in arms that are going to see this. Maybe some guys that I got a son that's in the Navy. He's over in Japan right now. So a little different situation, but serving is serving. And, guys have trouble. So share with us your experience and how you coped and kind of got through it.
Sure. So when I was there, I would say in October of 2004, I got to come home for a week.
Mm-hmm.
I remember exactly when it was because I'm a Red Sox fan. And if you're a Red Sox fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's go. So
I was looking, I forgot I had it on my head.
If you recall, late October 2004, that was a
big time
as
for
a Red
Sox.
As a Red Sox fan, it was a perfect week to take a vacation home. Anyway,
I got hair standing up on my neck thinking about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What a week.
That's right.
And that week, just a side note real quick, that week was amazing for me. Otherwise, like my friends were such good friends to me that week. Like they basically, I don't want to say babysitted, but like they made a schedule and like somebody's got to be hanging out with Hogue 24/7, like it was so cool. I had such a great time. Anyway, when I went back after a couple months is when it really settled in. And there were a couple incidents, of course, that was like, makes you fear for your life and wonder if you really want to do this, and I realized I didn't want to do this anymore. This wasn't for me. I didn't understand or agree with necessarily the mission. I felt like upon doing something he didn't want to do, and so that was kind of my struggle there. And it showed in my attitude. I people that I didn't respect, I stopped treating them with respect, which you're not really allowed to do in the military. So that created other issues. I didn't get kicked out or anything, but I was standing in front of the company commander a handful of times or more, that sort of thing. I got into face-to-face screaming matches with people that outranked me, which you can't do. Anyway, that sort of thing. I knew I was done with that, and how I dealt with it was not the right way. I mean, I I let my frustration show in the way I treated people. Um, which I regret. I was young. Um, try to be better about that.
Yeah.
In my age, I guess. And since then, what I've found talking to other veterans really so the whole people talk about flashbacks and bad dreams and this sorts of thing. That's never been my experience. I've never had those. Um, but what I've felt, it's hard for me to tell stories, specific stories, without reliving them. So I get emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and most of all, the way it's affected my outlook on life, I think, is it just changed my priorities. Like I really realized what is not important to me
Mm-hmm.
and what is important to me. And I act as such. I'm not, I have no truck for things that are, you might call vain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm 100% substance or, function over fashion.
Yeah.
Fashion is 0% to me. I do not care
Yeah.
at all. How good does it function, or how real is it, or how honest is it?
Yeah.
You know, and so that's kind of how I've made my way navigating through who I want to be around, what I want to spend my time doing, where I want to spend it. Um, I would say that's kind of how I've built myself an environment that's good for me
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah. Right on. Right on. So, that transition and the guys that I know, the guys that I'm friends with that came back, um, that transition from military life to civilian life, that's always tough,
It
especially
is.
when you've been in theater. It's tough on us guys. But you went into contracting, you were a professional poker player,
I
which
wouldn't say professional. I played for
well, I mean,
money. I
you were
played for.
making a
I
living off of
like
it,
to
so
pay
I
my
mean
bills.
that's professional, baby. I mean,
I didn't go sit down with Negreanu or anything.
yeah, I feel you, I feel you. But I mean that all that stuff, man, those shifts, that's like markers in life. And anytime you have a marker, there's always a shift in perspective, a shift
Sure.
in balance. You're either going to be on your front foot or your back foot. It takes a significant adjustment. So during these adjustments, like in that part of your life, because I mean, when did you get out? You were what, 26 when you got out?
No, I was 22 when
22.
I got
Okay,
out.
so you were 22 when you got out.
Mhm.
So 22 to 26 when you shifted to being a basketball, going to basketball coaching.
Mhm.
Like, describe that, managing that mental and emotional aspect of those transitions for me. Because there's like, I know in my life, like when I had major markers and shifts, like from being a single to being married to being a father, response, because I was a dad at 23. I'm 45 now. I got a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 17-year-old. So I like different perspective, different points, but still a shift. And I think it's important for the guys that hear this, like to get that perspective of that shift and that transition.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the first one uh, from the army to civilian was the toughest because I was young and I was still, in hindsight, real young. And coming back from theater was a complete change.
Yeah.
I didn't spend much time in the army once we got back from Iraq. And I'll tell you a funny story real quick that ties into what I was just telling you. Once we got back, I was basically clearing because I got what they call involuntary extended stop loss to do the extended tour
Mhm.
anyway. Basically, the second half of that Iraq tour, I was already contracted to be out, but they can say, "Oh, you're not getting out because
Yeah.
war and everything." Um, so as soon as we got back, I was out processing, right? But I took my sweet time out processing because I had a ton of leave. I never really had to use much leave because I was at Fort Hood and I was from San Antonio. So like I literally drove home on Friday evenings, and drove back Sunday night. So I didn't have to use a lot of leave. Anyway, so I had 90 days to clear, and then I had 90 days of unused leave. So I mean, I had 6 months of paycheck where I really,
Yeah.
could do whatever. Um, but during that time while I'm out processing, we got a new first sergeant because my company first sergeant was also out processing, and they promoted this dude at his name at the time. He was Sergeant First Class Aldridge, I think. Pretty sure that was his name. And I didn't like this guy because while we were in Iraq, he tased a kid. You know what I mean? So like no reason. Like we're walking down the street doing a patrol, and the kid got too close to him, so he tased the kid. Like, come on, dude. You know what I mean? Could have just pushed him away, or they speak, no basic language. They taught that to us. You
Yeah.
could have just yelled at him. Anyway, I didn't like this guy. I didn't respect him. Whatever. He wasn't going to tell me nothing. I'm out processing. You can't tell me shit. So I didn't go to PT formations. I was like done with that. And by the time I was in, like, I don't even remember what they called it. Like I wasn't even in a real platoon anymore. You know what I mean? Like I was assigned to basically the paperwork sergeant for the company, and he had to keep track of us or whatever. And he was cool. I never had any issues with him. He knew what time it was, and he was a nice guy. But Sergeant First Class Aldridge got on Sergeant Gomez one day because I wasn't there. Like, who does Hogue think he is? He doesn't have to show up. And I don't know what he said, but I'm sure he didn't really throw me under the bus. But he wasn't going to take no bullets for me either in that situation. And I don't blame him. So he basically called me and was like, "Hey, dude's all hot. You better come check in." And I was like in Austin or something. Like I wasn't even. Anyway, so I was like, all right, man, I'm on my way. So a couple hours later, I get there, put my uniform on, roll into the office, and I poke my head in Sergeant Gomez's door and check in with him. Hey, I'm here, man. I'm gonna fucking slide out, and say I checked in. And right at that moment, the first sergeant walked out of the company commander's office and started yelling at me across the room in front of 20 people or whatever it was in there. And so I didn't really know what I was gonna do. I was making eye contact with Sergeant Gomez, and I kept looking at him, and neither one of us said anything. And I was like debating, how am I going to handle it?
Yeah.
And I ignored him for long enough where he just said, get down and start pushing, blah, blah, blah. And I turned around and I was like, that ain't going to happen, dude. And everybody, I'm an E5. He's the first sergeant of the company. Like, I can't tell him I'm not going to do that. That's not how the military works. I didn't care at this point. And what were they going to do? You're not going to dishonorably discharge me because I told the guy I'm not doing push-ups because I get out next week. You know what I mean? Like, just whatever. So anyway, it was an entertaining thing. He made a big scene. He gave me an Arctic 15 and did the whole 9, and he did the dog and pony show. And then behind closed doors, they were like, "Look, you have to do this because you can't just disrespect the first sergeant in front of everybody. But we're not going to make you show up to extra duty. Just finish your paperwork and get the fuck out of here. Go home. Like, you don't belong here anymore." And I was like, yeah, that's what I was doing, bro. Like, that's you're the one who called me in. Anyway, right. So funny story. I'm sorry I sidetracked there. I don't remember.
No, you're good. You're good. So that transition from military to civilian life, and then you read a book called Hard Work by Roy Williams. Matter of fact, I've got a copy of it here in my office somewhere.
Oh, yeah, changed my life.
Yeah, it's a great book. You make this career shift at 26 to pursue coaching basketball, and which that's a unique profession in and of itself.
Yeah, it was rewarding though. It's fun.
Working with kids is a calling, and working with any athlete is a calling, I believe. But was there any part of that decision that motivated you besides the book? What motivated you to take the leap?
I think it was a combination of things. I guess culminated to let me know that it was time. I would say my frustration with how I was spending my days is a big one. I was just tired of that and ready to move on from it. Even though, I made more money at that time in my life than I have even since. But it didn't fulfill me, obviously. I was an unhappy person. That was a big part of it. I'd always kind of had this in my mind, and over that last, I don't know, year or two before I made the move, I'd been thinking about it a lot more, using the GI Bill, and exploring that, and then I think the book is probably what what really showed me, now I was comfortable with knowing how to do it. What the book was for me was a blueprint, because if you've read that book, you know Roy Williams tells you everything that he did to get
Yep.
Dean Smith's attention and to get access to those rooms to learn those things. And so what I did was what Roy Williams did.
Yep.
I stole it. I stole it right out of his book. And I made myself visible. I started sweeping the floors for these guys. I started, I told them, if you need somebody to carry a clipboard and, sit in the corner and keep your mouth shut, like, I'll do it. Like, I want to learn whatever you're willing to teach me, and help out in any way that I can. And I don't need to be paid. So, like, I'd like to work here. That's okay with you guys. And they were like, yeah, all right. And so, it worked out. And I think that the argument with boss man about pay was, I would have stayed a while longer if that conversation had gone smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long that would have been. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I feel you.
So,
So, thinking about, the coaching, because man, I know a lot of coaches, and these guys are even at high school level, because the kids are so much different today than they were 10, 15 years ago. It's a highly stressful job, but it offers the chance to positively influence other people.
sure.
When you were coaching, how did you manage the pressure that came with it, and um how did that possibly affect you from a mental health perspective?
Well, to be fair, I never really felt pressure as a coach. At college level, anyway, I was never a head coach. So I worked for people that felt pressure. I was there to help them and help the guys, help the kids. I was there because I enjoyed it and I had things that I could teach. And I enjoyed, watching film and figuring out the strategic part of it. What are the things that we can do, like little adjustments or coverages or, certain exploitable things. Like, I loved all that stuff. So the pressure to, win or get fired or whatever, I never felt any of that. Like, I never made much as an assistant anyway. And I, had a little bit of a government pension or whatever. So, getting fired has never been something that I concerned myself with. Whatever, I'll go somewhere else. It doesn't matter. But it becomes stressful and frustrating when you're not having success, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Not because of outside pressure, but it sucks to lose, man.
That's right.
When you're trying to win, and you spend time figuring out how to win, and you're not winning, that's not a fun situation.
Yeah.
So that was part of it. And then my biggest, I'd say, frustrations coaching was going from junior college, where I would say the environment is very much, this is not the end of my road. I'm going to move on from here.
Mm-hmm.
In 5 or 10 years, these kids see themselves still with basketball in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then went to AAU, where they're younger, and now I'm a college basketball coach. I just won a conference championship in Division I junior college, and I'm coaching these AAU kids. It was very easy to get
Mm-hmm.
credibility and for them to listen to me. Like, that was never an issue at all with those kids. And I had some wonderful kids and families that I worked with at the AAU time. But then I will say, I'll be honest, at the NAI level, it was different.
Mm-hmm.
These athletes don't look at it the same way. They didn't work the same way, and part of it was just the changing of the times. Like now, I was dealing with kids that grew up with iPads since they were 3 years old, and their brains
Yeah.
are wired differently because of
Yeah.
reward circuits and how they seek engagement and
Instant gratification, baby.
you know what I mean? Like, they're literally, they think and look at things differently than the kids even 8, 10 years before them did,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So that changed how you need to communicate with them most effectively, and it probably hurt my effectiveness in communication with them because I'm pretty blunt. I can be abrasive.
Yeah.
And that's not the best way to communicate with this current generation of athletes that know this is the end of the road anyway. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's how I felt, in the back end of my time at the NAI. And I was like, I don't know. So for a while there, I knew I was either going to go back younger, or I needed to go back to like JUCO where the kids are still hungry and still have something to work for.
Hmm.
Or I actually considered for a while switching over to the women's game. Um, because credibility and communication is just less of an issue.
Hmm.
They no offense to anybody, but
Yeah.
the females listen better. They do what you tell them to do, how you tell them to do it better.
Yeah.
Um, so, but ultimately, after that season, I had developed a pretty good relationship with the guy that ran the sports management department at the university, and he was connected with some people that were on the board that ran the golf course, and they knew that I was a member and I played pretty often. And he just called me one day and he's like, "Hey, would you be the guy that runs the course is retiring? Would you be interested in running the golf course for us?" And I was like, "That sounds interesting. You know, let's talk about it. Yeah, let's see." So that's basically what happened there, how I ended up here. But and it's the most stress-free job I've ever had. When it's slow, I just go play golf, dog. Like it's great.
Yeah.
You
That's
know what
what
I
I'm
mean?
talking about. Yeah.
Um,
You know, just sitting here like listening to you, man, I'm reflecting on your journey, man, from the military to playing poker to coaching, now managing a golf course,
mhm.
all
Yeah,
these
it's weird, right?
experiences, man. How has all this, the life of Don Hogue, like how has this changed or altered or advanced your views on mental health?
Oh, I mean, I'm much more aware of it now, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially, and going back to that period from 22 to 26, especially,
Yeah.
I would say I ignored it. Like
Yeah.
I thought the way to handle it was pretend it's not a thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm angry at the world, for reasons I can't articulate or don't want to, or
Mhm.
whatever, and it's affecting my relationships with people. But I didn't, you know, even really honestly, I wasn't honest with myself about it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And I would say and go back to the transition, I remember where I was going with that, when I forgot my point. When I got out of the military, for the first year and a half or so, I lived like a person that was trying to make up for lost time.
Hmm.
Um, like, like every party that I missed,
Hmm.
every girl I could have hung out with and
Yeah.
didn't or couldn't because whatever. Like,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I lived pedal to the metal, doing everything I could, everyone I could,
Hmm.
for you know too long, and burnt out. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, um, and I think that's kind of probably about the time when I started doing more traveling, started working more
Hmm.
contracts that were nationwide, or go to Massachusetts for a couple weeks or go to California for
Hmm.
whatever, things like that, just to try to mitigate some of that.
Hmm.
And then that's how I ended up in Phoenix the first time for a little while. Anyway, so that was a thing that needed to be addressed because I'm not the only one, uh, military wise, especially people coming back from theater that handle it that way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I tried to ignore it, pretend it's not a thing, and I'll just go party with my friends and it's all good. But you know, you just can't run from it forever.
Well, it's, I talked about this the other day. I mean, ordinary matchstick, right? That's what it's like when you're living and you're just trying to do everything that you want to do. And it just burns and it burns and it burns and it burns. And you think it's never going to stop. And then one day you hit the wall or something goes wrong, or your body tells you, my experience, 6, 7, 8 months ago, your body goes, hey motherfucker, like,
Yeah.
wake up, dude, you got problems.
Mhm.
So, and it's different for all of us, man. And I think it's important to touch on that. We can't be a match. And like literally we can't be like a matchstick. And it's so unique. I love how like fate, God, whatever you want to call it. Like I love how I believe in predetermination. Like there's a reason for everything that happens to me, good or bad. There's a reason. And I love how I get to meet people like you, Bino, Philly, from different points. I mean, we're from different parts of the world, grew up in different places, have different experiences, but we all came together under this one idea. And
Mhm.
that's advancing, our experience and teaching people that are behind us, the younger guys, saying, hey guys, it's okay, you can step forward and talk about this. It's okay to put this out there. Given that unique blend of experiences, man, if you could tell these young guys or any guy that's undergoing a significant life change, a career transition, if you could tell them one thing today, what would it be?
Uh, be comfortable um, with these things. Like, be comfortable with talking about these things. I think it's important, especially as men and young men, that you have a circle or a group, or at least a friend or two,
Yep.
that you discuss these things. And it doesn't have to be, just because you're talking about this stuff, it's not all woe is me all the time or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it can be whatever. Call him, have a beer while you're talking to your buddy, and
Mm,
say, this thing pissed me off today, or I'm
that's right.
feeling some type of way about this, or whatever,
That's right.
whatever it is, whatever's going on in your life.
That's
Like,
right.
um, it's important to have people that you love and that love you. That
Well, it's that three. You hear me talk about it all the time. It's about having those three motherfuckers in your life.
Yes, sir.
Those three people that at 3 o'clock in the morning, like there's some guys like Philly's one of those guys. He knows if he calls me at 3 a.m., I'm asking, where am I going? Do I need a
Hmm.
roll of plastic? Do I need a shovel?
Yeah.
And you've got to have those three guys in your life, man, because the stigma, you and I are close to the same age, you know, the stigma that we were raised, you didn't talk about this stuff. You pushed it down. You rubbed dirt on it and kept moving. My dad, God love him.
Especially in the rural South.
Yeah, absolutely. If you started talking about like I got a mental health issue or something's going on, the
Mhm.
man, dude, they want to put you in the damn 72-hour hold in a heartbeat. Like there's something wrong with you. We all had that family member they kept locked in the back room, you know, like we all had that one cousin that was just a little off, you know what I mean? And so you didn't want anybody to think that there was something wrong with you, that you had a problem. So, the men that I looked up to, my granddad, my dad, my uncles, man, they were these big, imposing, just strong. Like, you never saw them cry, you never saw them hurt. I mean, my dad worked on a broke leg for 6 weeks before he went and got it looked at. That kind of dude, you know what I mean? So going from that to where I'm at today at 45, like I didn't really start talking about this stuff out loud until right before my dad died and then right after, because for me, my story, like I lost a spouse in 14, lost my dad in 18, lost my mom in 20, buried some cousins, aunts, and uncles in between there. Really didn't start talking about this stuff. I mean, I'd had a suicide attempt in between there. I didn't really start talking about this stuff till after my dad died. And that's
Mhm.
probably for me, my biggest regret in life. I didn't talk. I knew this stuff. I knew about it. I was educated about it, but I didn't talk to my dad about it So that's like the biggest burden I've got as a man is like I didn't say the things I needed to say. And I said a lot of things to him before he passed, but didn't say the things I needed to say to a guy, one of the guys that was my three, because my dad was one of my three.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's important for doing things like this for regular guys, because we're both regular dudes. We ain't nobody special. We're just a dude from Iowa, a dude in Alabama. We're talking about mental health.
The dude that lives in Iowa.
Who lives in Iowa? My bad. You're Texan. That's a Texan, always a Texan. I knew he was going to say something. Horns down, by the way.
Hey, come on, bro.
But I think it's important, man, because there's not enough guys out there, especially our generation, that are discussing these things out loud. They may talk about them at the bar. They may talk about them out in their shed or their barn or their garage or on the golf course or whatever with their buddy, but they're not having these conversations out loud for other people to hear because they think, man, if somebody hears me talk about this, they're going to think something's wrong with me. I mean, I'm wearing one of Philly Cheese's shirts right now. I wear this at the gym. Sometimes people look at me like I am nuts.
Started to wear my BMBB hat, but
dude,
I didn't know if hats were appropriate.
I don't have one.
I shouldn't even say that. I didn't know if hats were appropriate, but I brought a beer.
It's all good. But the thing is, it's like it's getting men to be more open and supporting these conversations. So last question, and then I'm gonna let you get out of here because I know you got stuff to do. I got stuff to do. But man, if you could share one mental health resource or a piece of advice that has personally helped you through a tough time, man, what would it be?
As a resource, I mean, we talked about BMBB. I mean, he's got a great space. Where if you, especially if you don't,
Twitter, man, for sure.
Yeah, especially if you don't have somebody you feel like you can talk to about, or maybe it's something that you do have those kind of people, but this one particular thing, maybe you don't want to share that out or keep it private or whatever. I mean, you can be completely anonymous in this thing if you want to, and you can talk about it and they'll talk back to you about it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a great that's a great resource.
Yep.
And for me personally, it was, I guess, having enough just belief in myself, I guess I should say, that to not feel like I had to do what was expected of me or what the normal thing for people to do is, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
get a 9 to 5 and settle down with a house in a certain, whatever the traditional stuff is.
Yeah.
I never felt comfortable doing that because I wasn't even, sorry, I keep looking away. I wasn't even comfortable with me yet. Like, I didn't know who I was or who I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. So
yeah.
I never thought about those things until finally I was like, I mean, I got to stop just assing around here, and just decide, I'm going to do what I want to do and I need to go do it. And that's, that's it. And so just feeling comfortable in yourself. If there's something you want to chase it. If there's, and for me, the most helpful thing has been, I guess that was a long-winded way of saying, structuring my life and my environment in a way that doesn't stress me in a way that I don't want to be stressed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's, that's why I run a golf course and I live in the middle of nowhere. I'm not disconnected from the world. You know what I mean? I have, I'm pretty active on Twitter, multiple accounts. I got friends I talk to on the phone every day. I got friends I play golf with every day.
Yeah,
so,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's worked for me.
Well, it's community. I mean, I think that's the bottom line. It's about making sure that you have community.
Huge.
It's a man was not meant to fight wars alone, and that's physical wars, spiritual wars, emotional wars, whatever it is. We're not meant to be solitary creatures. And as much as society and culture try to tell us that we're supposed to be that way, that's not reality. And the guys that try to do it on their own, 9 times out of 10, they die. They just like that match, they burn out. And I've experienced it. Like, I know what that burnout looks like. I know what it feels like. And it's interesting because again, we talk about this, like we talk about this on Wednesdays on Mental Health Matters with
Shit.
Philly and Dino. Yeah, that's my dog right there. See,
Hey, forgot I had this on the desk behind me,
that's what we're talking about. So mine's a little older than yours. I promise you, it's a little dirtier too.
man.
But it's real stuff because like Wednesdays, man, it's some days we'll have 10, 12, 14 people. Some days we'll have 40 roll through.
Yeah.
The most we've ever had was like 200 and something roll through one day. But it's consistency. That's the thing that I love about those two guys is every Wednesday for going on 99 weeks. 99 weeks. That's commitment right there. I think they've missed 1 week in 99 or they'd be at 100 right now because
Yeah.
like something happened during New Year's or something. We got our wires crossed. But so 99 weeks, that's the level of consistency. Those dudes are there. I'm there. I've been there with them like 90 weeks. You're there. You're not there all the time, but you do pop in and out. But the level of consistency, it's just like with whether it's your weightlifting or your exercise or your golf game or relationships with other people, it's all about consistency. And I think that's one thing that's missing in our culture right now is nobody wants accountability and they don't want to be consistent. They want it right now. And you can't, and I said this the other day, I think I said it Wednesday in the space. I didn't get 415 pounds overnight.
Mm.
That was 15, 18 years worth of bad sleep, bad food, a lot of booze, bad decisions, like all these things culminated, mental health problems, anxiety, depression, eating my feelings, like all these things. Now I'm 103 pounds down now. I got 50 more to go. My wife's like, you're going to look sick at 250. I'm like, you think I look sick at 250? Wait till I get back up to 280 in muscle. You're really going to be like, holy crap, what the hell happened to my husband? But it's shifting that mindset, you know? It's flipping that switch and going, damn, I've been stuck in the mud for so long.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys, they get in that position where they're stuck and they don't have the training or they don't have the people around them. And I tweeted this out tonight. Like, if your friends are only telling you the good shit, you got the wrong friends.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have people in your life that are going to tell you the truth, even when it hurts, when it's bad, when you don't want to hear it. You might get mad about it, but you still got to hear it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
100%.
Coach Hogue, Don, man, I appreciate it, dude. You're the first guy on Sasquatch, first guest I've ever had on Sasquatch Says. It's a big deal to me. I appreciate you. I definitely want to get you back. We're going to do some more roundtable stuff later on. I'm going to get you part of that. But guys, if you're watching this or you're listening to it and you're looking for a reason to keep going, let this conversation be it. Let this be the sign of like, well, hey, you're valuable, you're wanted, you're needed. The world needs you in it. And if you need support, call 1-800-273-8255 or text pound 988. Mental Health Matters on Wednesday. Our boy Philly, our boy Bino. I'll be there. I'm there every Wednesday. I'm in and out now with my new job, my newest job. So it's fun. I enjoy it. I love being able to pour into other people, but I also get poured into too because I hear new stuff all the time. So it's valuable. But Don, again, thank you. This has been your boy Sasquatch with Sasquatch Says Live. Appreciate your time. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you, Coach. Talk to you.